All right, hello and welcome everybody. I'm Melody here again with another session for how to optimize your inventory, reduce your working capital tied into inventory while improving the overall availability rate. In the last session, I covered with you my CEO view and how I look at my inventory on a daily basis. This is a report that gets updated for me. And in this segment, I'll share with you 5 other dashboards that I use. One of them real quick is about how the device movement over a specific time. I really like seeing how we're doing in terms of on a monthly basis, how that trend is moving, especially if I have a feeling and believe that we have too much inventory and I want to reduce it. And in the last video, I shared with you that we are actually indeed reducing that. And this is kind of a chart that showcased this reduction that have happened throughout this year with devices. And it's the same thing here with accessories company-wide. You're able to see here how much of that inventory is being moved. And this is what you would like to see, especially if you believe that you have excess inventory. You want to make sure that you're making progress on the reduction of your inventory. And this is one dashboard that I like viewing where I'm able to see the quantity, the cost of items that I have in a specific location for both devices. Again, device color coding here, green is for devices and blue is for accessories. How is that moving over time in this specific location? Is following the trend for the entire company where you're seeing a downward movement without actually compromising the availability rate. And this is the beauty of having the ability to look at this information, is because you're able to look at your inventory going down and in the same time improving the availability rate or the stock out level. And in the next one, I like looking at device average aging of the devices and the inventory turnover. Average age of a device and inventory turnover are kind of really similar metrics. They're slightly calculated differently, but they tell you the same story. And that really is how old is the inventory on hand that you have. And this nice pie chart here allows you the opportunity to see what % of your inventory in a specific location is below 30 days, what % of it is in the red, and what % of it is in the yellow, allowing you the opportunity to zoom in. You could do that for a specific location, for a specific district, and that number will change and update automatically as you change the location. And in this particular location, unfortunately, you could see an upward trend of an aging device. It means that this location isn't following FIFO, and there is something that needs to be done about it. Over time, at least at the beginning of July, their average devices was 18, and now it almost doubled. So this is a cause for conversation with the store manager in that specific location. How do we improve and work on first in, first out? One of the fundamental retail principles as you move inventory and deal with excess inventory. And this is another view, as mentioned, similar view and similar number and inventory turnover on devices, 26 days. It means that on average, this location is turning over every device that they get once every 26 days. And you're able to see how that number changes over time. And you're able to select what period you're looking for. And it's the same thing with accessories. 130 days is a lot. 130 days turnover on accessories means that this particular location is turning over its accessory inventory a little less than 3 times per year. Now, in all honesty, you can't really tell if this number is really is too high or too low, unless you have a best-in-class wireless retailer that you're able to compare yourself to, or you could compare the accessory into, if you have a store that has a very solid solid operations from the management perspective, you could share and see what the best-in-class store in there and see that. But I know enough that 130 days is too much. I like to see accessories below 100 days. And we're constantly working on how to improve that. But I like seeing these things, and seeing allows me the opportunity to change the period and seeing how those numbers are changing, or for improving the trend or for not. And here I also have the device purchase and accessory purchase over a period of time, where you're looking here at is a period year to date really. And this is especially important when you're trying to reduce inventory. You want to see a difference between the cost of goods that you have sold and the devices that your team is purchasing, or the replenishment process. If you think that there is excess inventory, you're trying to figure out if there is a spread between the cost of goods that you're buying and the cost of goods that you're selling. If there is no difference, if your cost of purchases are higher than the cost of goods that you're buying, it means that you're building up inventory, and it could be a very dangerous trend. And the same thing goes for accessories. If I see that there is a location or specific location that has a high level of accessories, I want to make sure that there is a nice spread between the cost of goods sold and the cost of goods purchased. And in the specific, there's a healthy spread between the cost of goods sold and the cost of goods purchased. And I like seeing that. And I also love seeing, as I mentioned in the last video, per unit prices to allow me the opportunity to see how that trend is moving. Are we buying inventory that's cheaper? Are our customers demanding that? And this is an interesting trend that I am seeing since March. There is a downward pressure on the per unit prices. Now, it's too early to tell whether our customers are unable to afford higher end phones or the same. It's a short period, just 6 months. But this is a nice view that allows me that opportunity to say that. And then really the same thing with accessories, knowing how is the team doing on the average per unit purchases over a period of time. If is it increasing, is it decreasing, especially in an inflation, and during an inflation environment. This gives you the ability to monitor that and make sure that you have your costs under control. And that's why we built this vendor analysis report, where I am able, this is actually, I'm hitting in this column is the vendor column, where I see my cost per unit sold and my cost per unit purchase and the amount of purchases that I made from a specific vendor and the margins for that vendor. And so, and I can select a specific period of time. So this, you'll see the margins that you are getting from each vendor. And this is really a nice way to evaluate the quality of the vendors and the relationship that you have with the vendors. Are they giving you great prices, and are you getting great margins on them or not? In this particular example, this vendor is offering me $4.83 per unit purchase, and we're getting 7 to 8% margins from this vendor. Now, I like seeing my accessory margins above 80%. And what's really interesting here that you could lose sight of, you might be foregoing a good vendor, because when you look at the per unit purchases, you'll see that this vendor is charging you $7, whereas this vendor is charging you $4.83. You might say, I'll go with this vendor, but you're able to charge more for this vendor. You're getting margins of 80%, whereas this vendor, you're getting margins 7 to 8%. So this begs the question, are you able to hold your margins and have higher margins while having a better quality from a vendor? If the answer is yes, it's a no-brainer. But without having that ability, without having a table that ties the margins and that ties the cost per unit to specific vendors, you're kind of really shooting in the dark, and you don't know what your margins are and what your cost per unit. Vendors will tell you, I'll cut you a deal, I'll cut you a price, they may give you specific discount on some SKUs, but not all of them. There are thousands of SKUs, and there's no way for you to monitor all of that. And so this table it keeps your vendors honest, quite frankly. And that's why I love having this table. And lastly, what I wanted to share with you is my shipping costs. In the last video, I shared at the end that I love seeing my shipping costs and how that moves over time. As wireless retailers, there's so much pressure on your costs and operating costs. So I am looking at everything in my operation. I'm looking at my shipping costs on both accessories, on devices. And I like looking at it from 3 different angles. How am I doing on a shipping cost per device as a percentage of the cost of goods? How am I doing on a specific amount? How the cost of the shipping? How much does that cost? And how is it looking on a per unit basis? And you can see in the specific location that the cost per unit is $1.59 on accessories, on devices, for this specific location, whereas the shipping cost per accessory purchase is 34 cents. This number is actually too high for me. I like seeing $1.30, and this one I like seeing 24 cents. Now, how do you know if the number is too high or too low? Well, you can kind of look at your company-wide numbers so that you can really incorporate the law of averages and see what was the best month that you've had in the last 2 years, or the last year if 2 years is not available, and then create that benchmark for your purchasing team. And what I love about being able to track my shipping costs on a per item basis or a percentage basis is because this specific KPI is competing against the availability rate, and it's competing against the working capital. By their nature, competing KPIs. If one goes up, the other one goes down. So this purchasing team has to find the balance, making sure that they have just the right amount of inventory purchased and the right amount of inventory on hand so that they're not increasing your shipping costs. The last thing that you want to do is reduce your working capital, and that reduction, you end up paying it in shipping because your purchasing team is having to overnight everything. This is it for today. I wanted to share with you these dashboards, and the next segment I am going to share with you the device stockout levels and how do you measure your device stockouts, what that looks like, and the same thing on accessories. And this is actually my favorite view. And in this view, this is really what allowed us to capture and improve our stockout levels and improve our availability rate while reducing our working capital. Stay tuned for this video. You don't want to miss it, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you.